Hi guys, I'm Andy and I'm here to bring you all things mundane and makeup related. If that's your vibe, I would love it if you would subscribe to be part of my little slice of the internet. Today I'm going to bring you my April palette ranking. So let's go ahead and just get on into it. So I used 12 palettes in the month of April, which pretty good. I'm happy with that. And we're just going to get started. So the first palette, I'm going to put a picture up because I decluttered it. So that is obviously why that's in number 12. And that's going to be the Clarity Cosmetics Deadly Rose palette. I just did not like it. I tried it twice. And actually, here, let me grab my rate and rotate so I can actually tell you wholesale my thoughts. Where are you? Okay. So, my first use, the first time I used it, I used all the shades, and I didn't like anything but the green shades, the one green matte and the one green shimmer. The shade Once and For All, which is in the corner, that, like, shimmery shade, it, like, puffed up, and I will try to remember I will try to link my video of my first impression of it. It puffed up and it went everywhere. It puffed up on me. It got all over my desk. It was all over my face when I tried to use it. Bad shade. It was just awful. The second time I used it, the mattes worked better. They actually blended out okay, but they were patchy and the shimmers were thick, all of them. The two, like, taupey matte shades were practically the same color on me. The red just wasn't good, and I'm very picky with red mattes, reds in general, because we don't get them well. The greens were still just fine, but just the palette overall was a no. So I decluttered that one. So now, in spot number 11, which I also have a caveat to this. This is my Cannabis Creations Mary Jane palette. I have a dud. I have a bad palette, and that's why this is in number 11. Because this is what she looks like, and this is an all-cream palette. And my creams they're so thick and dry, and even trying to get you a swatch. Like, they swatch all right. But on the eyes, I've tried to use a couple of these, and they just do not perform. I have tried using, like, fixing spray to help wet the shadow, to put it on the eyes. I've used a couple different kinds of brushes, and they're patchy on the eyes. There's hardly any pigment. So I messaged the brand on Instagram and I was like, hey, do you have any tips on how to use this palette? Because I'm just not getting what I want out of it. And they sent me a video and I was using it like the same way that they're using it in the video, with this kind of brush, a more flat brush to pick up the product, to lay it down. And I was just like, well, my creams are super thick, really tough and hard. And they're like, oh, well, it's absolutely not supposed to be like that. So they're in the process of sending me a new one, which is super awesome because I've never had a dud palette. So this month it's ranking number 11 because I have a dud, but I'm very excited to get my new one and to try it out in comparison. And we will have to see in May where it ranks going further. But now going forward, I mean, I like all my palettes, so it's just basically how much I use them and color story. So in spot number 10, I have my Ditto Venus palette. For this one, I just always feel like I don't know what I'm doing when I open this palette. Like, it's pretty, which is why I've almost decluttered it twice and I've saved it, because it's so pretty. And every time I swatch it, I'm just blown away. Like, especially this shade, because it's like a highlight and it shifts red and it's sparkly and it's just gorgeous. But I'm just so it ranks to number 10 because I only used it once, and I think I only used that highlighty shade. So it's got to rank number 10. In spot number 9, it was my level 1 project pan for Project Level Up. This was my palette. This is the ColourPop Going Coconuts. I don't do neutrals. If you cannot tell, I'm not a neutral person. So, like, this is great. I love ColourPop's formula. Just neutrals aren't my thing. But I used all of these shades at least once. This was the shade I decided to use 5 times, which is Shredded, which it's got a nice dip on it now. So, it's just ranking that low because of color story, because neutrals. Spot number 8 is also from ColourPop. This is my Ménage à Moi palette, which was in my Color Pan project pan. And I love this color story. I love the mauves with the 2 pressed glitters. It's just, it's not as new and it's not as colorful as the rest of the palettes that are in my ranking this month. So that's why it's lower. I love the color story. I love the formula. I love the palette. It's just, it's lower because it is. In spot number 7, we have the ColourPop, the Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson Conspiracy palette. Right now, I have this orange shade, which is Cheese Dust, in a project. So it's the only shade I've been using out of this palette, which is why it's got to rank so much lower, because I literally haven't touched any other shade. I have that shade on my eyes today, and I like it. I do like Jeffree Star's formula, even though he's a piece of crap. I tell you guys that all the time, but it's a good palette. But because I'm only using one shade, and I've only used one shade in this palette so far, it's got to rank so much lower than everything else. In spot number 6, we have one of my more new palettes. This is the Glaminatrix Pretty in Pastels, which looks like this. These are good. These are good pastels, which is why this is middle of the road compared to everything else. But it just wasn't memorable. Like, I had to literally go back and look at the look I created with this palette because I couldn't remember it. But it was pretty. I remember the shimmers being nice. I love that we have a deepening row of colors to go with the pastels. They're nice. I need to play with this more. I've only done one look with it, so that could also be why. But so far, like, that's my opinion on it. It's nice. In spot number 5, we have my Glamlight and Scooby-Doo. I grabbed the wrong one because I have both of them in a project. This is the one, the Creeps and Crawls, which looks like this. I did a palette bingo on this, which I believe I filmed, so that'll be coming later in the month. But this is a great formula. I do really love Glamlight's formula. I ended up using this purple, and then the 3 center shimmer shades. Gorgeous look. If you follow me on Instagram, you would have already seen the beautiful dark look that I created with this palette. But that's my one complaint, is like, this is dark. And I think that's what most people, because I remember when this came out last year, that's what people were complaining about, is that this palette is dark. And I agree. Like, the look is beautiful, but it's deep, dark, aggressive. So, like, it's just, you gotta know that going into it, that unless maybe you stick to, like, these 2 shades only, you're going to get a very deep, aggressive, dark look. Which isn't a bad thing. I just was not prepared for how smoky and deep the look was going to get. I had a very, like, bluey purple theme this month, which, love that for me. In spot number 4, we have my ColourPop in a Trance palette, which looks like this. It's a nice overall palette. I do really like it. The glitter is nice. I love ColourPop pressed glitters. This shade makes me so angry. And that's why this is ranked lower than I would have put it. Because it's literally a knockoff Ice Dream. But, like, worse. And I said that in a video about it. It's just not as shiny. It's not as good. So, like, I don't think I'm ever really going to use that shade because it's not as good as Ice Dream, which is a ColourPop Super Shock if you are unaware. So, yeah, the palette's good, but that shade makes me viscerally angry because it's just not good. In spot number 3, we have my Unearthly Don't Be Jelly palette, which looks like this. I have all 5 mattes in a project. So I have only used the mattes, and I've used Lagoon, which is gorgeous. I've used Sea Star, and I think I've used Sea Urchin as well. But I know I've used the purple and the blue, and they're so pigmented, and they're so just saturated, and it's gorgeous. But I haven't touched the shimmers yet, because every time I've used the mattes in this, I've used them in conjunction with other palettes, so I haven't even dipped into the shimmers. But the mattes, which is why this is ranking number 3, because I haven't touched the palette as a whole, but so far, I love this palette. In spot number 2, we have my Doo Pan, my Battleship palette, and that's my Jeffree Star Blue Blood palette. Still no pans, because DW is kicking my ass royally, but she is taking a break from her palette for a minute, so maybe I can hit a pan. That's my goal. And it's probably going to be a miss, because the shade is broken, but, like, if I'm going to hit a pan on anything, it's going to be this shade, because I had a head start on it. Or the glitter, but, like, I don't want to hit pan on that glitter. I really don't. So, I love this color story, and I just need to use it more, because it's my Doo Pan, my Battleship palette, but if you haven't seen that, I will leave that in the cards. Good project. DW's kicking my ass. And in spot number 1, that is my level 2 palette for Project Level Up, and this is the Cara Beauty Summer Days palette. I will also have a palette bingo for this coming up later, probably next week. This is great textures, great formula. I absolutely love this so much. And I just love the color story. I love the green and blues with the pops of yellow. I think it's beautiful. Highly recommend. Those are the 12 palettes for the month. I would love to know, are any of these your favorite, your least favorite? All of the questions, comments, concerns in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.